We
You're
wake
coming
up.
at this extremely sideways, man.
Can I talk?
You can. You're
Go
not
ahead,
very
Seethe.
good at
Okay,
it.
thank you. So
I just want to bring it back to this. So this kind of kicked off after Hop put up the video on the Nova group, which is choosing which 2A companies to support, where he made some comments kind of offhandedly about lead and steel throughout that video. I think that's when this started, specifically when you reached out to me and I believe to Hop as well for this. So just to back up a little bit, you've known Lead and Steel, Ahmad, 6 months, right?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that's
perfect.
accurate.
Yeah. Well, Hop, I don't know if you have anything you wanna say before we just kind of dive into the disagreements, I suppose.
I mean, I think he basically already ruined it immediately. He said he's friends with the CEO. He said they sent him free stuff. So it's already over, in my opinion. No offense.
Okay. So, well, let's start with you, Marlon.
To go a little bit more into that, I think this is the problem that I have often had with Lead and Steel is that you are not approaching this from a perspective of this is an innovative product that really needs to be talked about. It's more about a friendship thing. I think I see the same thing with in-range TV. Like, again, I understand. I understand being friends with people. But
Let's have this conversation first before you end it, right? Off the rip. You might be surprised. I mean, you should arrive here open-minded. I would hope you arrive here.
No, I'm sorry. This is a company that white labels products. There are millions of them. There are so many of them. The reason that you're running interference for this company, I think you've already admitted it, is because you're friends with the CEO. I think the same thing has been happening with in-range TV. They have admitted that they have had friendly conversations with this company. They have made a friendship with this company, and so I understand it. It's extremely difficult to put aside personal relationships. That's why, for example, one of my good personal friends, Dane of Munition Works, I can't genuinely talk about his products because he's a very dear friend of mine. I love him. I love his products, whatever. But it's too late for me now because now we are friends. And I think that is something that happens all the time in this industry, whether you want to or not. I've felt this happening to myself as I've gotten more access to this industry. I've met more and more people from companies where it's I would love to be critical of this company, but I've met the people behind this company and they're good, genuine people. And now it feels difficult for me to criticize this company, even though I don't have even a financial relationship at all with these companies. Maybe they don't even send me product. Maybe there's not even that relationship. You have that plus the friendship. It's almost impossible to overcome that. That's a mental block. I understand that. It's fucking difficult. I've never really given a shit about Smith & Wesson. I started meeting people from Smith & Wesson, going to Smith & Wesson events, and I'm like, man, these people are really fucking awesome. Now it's hard for me to say bad things about them. I understand that happens. It happens all the time. It happens to all of us. Same thing has happened to in-range TV.
But let's talk about some of the things you are saying, though, that are not correct. I think that's kind of my concern.
Well, can I hop in? Because
yeah.
That just to start off, what specifically was the reason for reaching out to Hop and myself from that video that Hop put out the other day, or the Nova group put out the other day? What kicked it off?
So for you, John, specifically, the belief that you were approached with a bribe.
Okay, so that's going back to almost a year and a half now.
Yeah, from your old video. That video is old but new to me. I didn't even know about that until more recently, and I was like, dude, because I think on our sidebar I explained I think there's a cultural misunderstanding, and I can explain that for the audience here in a minute. But then for Hop, I saw that video you did with just kind of the something along the lines of which companies to support 2A, something like that. And my protest to that is not even necessarily about the merits of a very good lineup of optics that I've I mean, you can deny it on your end.
Information.
But
they're just optics, brother. You got it. You have to start from somewhere
you're
better
absolutely
than that.
right, and I love that you mentioned that. They are just optics, and this is what kind of my beef is with your video, is that all right, because you guys have the gamer headsets, you'll probably understand a way that I can kind of illustrate this is, let's think about our cause, the Second Amendment, as us playing StarCraft
That's a
every day of our life.
We're not doing that.
Let me continue, and then you can, let me continue. So we wake
coming
up.
At this extremely sideways, man.
Can I talk?
You can. You're not very good.
Okay, thank you. So we're playing this game of StarCraft, right? And we've got the Space Marines here, the laboratories, the you know, what do you call it, the things that produce the tanks, the factories, whatever, right? Like all these little.
One eternity later.
I think.
So can I just kind of
Yeah.
summarize that argument is basically, hey guys, we're all pro 2A, so why go after pro 2A companies because we risk losing the whole thing? Basically, is that kind of the line of thinking there?
Yeah, absolutely.
So right, but what if I told you that a mod is not necessarily Second Amendment the same way that we are?
How
And
do you
maybe
figure?
our goals are not particularly aligned. So again, you've only known the man for 6 months. So you
Right.
probably aren't aware of his voting habits or his donation habits,
Okay.
but he does donate minuscule amounts at times, but as recently as 2024 to companies like Act Blue to elect people like Hadeen Nasser, I want to say, or sorry, Nasser Beirun, blue politicians. And I
Okay,
pulled all
hold
this
on.
stuff
Do you
up.
know who that politician is?
He was a guy who tried to run for Senate, I want to say, before he got disqualified. And
Okay.
if we want to talk about that race was wild because the allegations in there that somebody approached him with like $20 million to run against a anti-Israel politician, the current senator there, that whole story is absolutely wild.
I
But
have
you can go
no
into
clue.
all of his generic positions and whatnot that I pulled up specifically for this. I mean, he was a Bernie bro back in 2016, and Bernie is not particularly friendly to Second Amendment rights. So, I mean, you can
let's
argue
go back
that he's
to Nasser.
you can argue that he's changed over the last 10 years or so that he's been politically active, but he does actively, like, this is objective. He actually does donate to lefty organizations that are
you're
not
objective, but
necessarily pro-gun.
let's add context. So, I told you I'm Lebanese descendant. Ahmad is Palestinian. There are stuff that we, as members of the diaspora from Palestine, from Lebanon, we have concerns that it's not specific to a party. It's just if someone is available to kind of like address those concerns or to bring up those issues.
Now I actually understand that, but wouldn't that kind of mean that there's a higher ideal than just the Second Amendment? Right. So, for instance, they'd be willing to align with a somebody who might be less pro Second Amendment if they fit their other bills, like, for instance, in Ahmad's case, like more pro Palestinian, which I'm not even saying that's a bad position to hold. But if I'm like let's say this, I'm the Second Amendment absolutist, and Ahmad is like, yes, but like there's more to it than that. I have other allegiances or things that I'd like to see get done. Right. So they're willing to compromise a little bit, as you can see by his voting history and by
But John,
we're
we're assuming that the right, or the perceived right, or the Republican Party is the Praetorian Guard of the Second Amendment, and I think everyone here knows that not to be true. I think it's very dangerous to.
Well,
and
yeah,
this has been a problem across.
If we want to criticize both sides, there's an infinite amount of ammunition in that regard. But if we're talking about specifically like which side pushes forward more gun control, gun safety advocacy, it is mostly coming from one side. There's still absolutely
Overtly, you're
right.
right. But then what about the side that uses our Second Amendment concerns as kind of this like lazy hostage? I don't know if that's a good way of putting it, but basically,
no, I understand what you mean. It's like putting the HPA in the Short Act in an 1,100-page bill that does a bunch of other really crappy things that we wouldn't like, but it throws us a bone in the one area where we're interested in.
It's a bargaining chip. We may benefit from it, but at the end of the day, the people that are pitching that shit, your Dan Crenshaws and all those other guys, they don't live this life. So I think we need to really just get out of the like, oh, he voted for Bernie at one point, or so. Maybe he did. I don't know if he did. I can't read the.
Well, I mean, he donated actively to the campaign, so that, I mean.
But how much was the donation?
It's tiny amounts, but these were back when he was.
Okay, so probably not using like company funds. Okay, so college.
No, this is personal. This is personal.
Yeah,
just a month.
Okay,
not.
But I mean,
so that's a separate entity.
I liked serving under President Obama. Am I a horrible person? Like.
Of course not.
I think that's just really irrelevant, and I think it's not. Again, it's just one of those things where people. Maybe you guys have your feelings about it, but typically what I see in the comment sections and other, I don't like Reddit. I think
I agree.
It doesn't. It's not a congregation of like our best stock of people, and I think people just use those little bits to be like, well, that's why I don't buy this product, instead of just being like, hey, I don't feel like buying it. You know, people have like they talk themselves off of stuff and cite weird reasons. Because at the end of the day, like Hop said, it's just an optic. So it's like, if it's just an optic, then buy it. And if you don't need an optic, don't buy it. But we need to get as many people with optics mounted on rifles, competent, and we need to take this shit seriously. That's how I look at it. So um, I hear you guys about like, okay, act blue, whatever, man. But at the end of the day, like, if he's pushing out, I think I don't know if Hop was just being like hyperbolic about 1 million units. That's definitely not what they have in inventory. I'm not at liberty to like discuss what they have in inventory, but I have just a good idea because of what I requested and seeing how that contrasted to what's on hand. But they're not holding a trove of. I think a lot of people think also that the stuff's made in China.
Well, no.
There's
So sorry to back
yeah.
up there for a second, but did you
Mm.
say that you requested a bunch of stuff from them?
Yeah, for the next few months, I have a lot of guns lined up. So I'm like, it'll make me more. It'll take time away, or how to say, freeze up stuff if I don't have to go out and acquire like optics. If I could
Yeah.
just put like, okay, LP1 on this gun, leave it on there,
Mhm.
run all these tests, because I know it's a good piece of gear. My testing, okay, I get you might have something different, but everything I've thrown at them to include, we just did a dive, not me, but my guy did a dive with it. Um, so if I have something like that, that's with a high confidence, yeah, I'm gonna want to outfit everything I'm doing for the next few months.
Right, but
So
that was
that's
kind of
just a
Hop's original
request.
point, is that you're in a, I don't want to say necessarily a financial relationship, but there's like kind of a, hey, can I get XYZ so that I don't have to spend my funds on it, and then the company is supplying you with things. Like, there's a relationship there, right? Which in the business we would call that,
Um,
like a bias.